It is a cold, dreary, kind of gross outside day today, so what better day for another set of ghost stories. Actually going for more of like a cozy sleepover vibe here. I'm obviously not in the kitchen. I'm actually just like sitting on my bed, chilling. I'm all comfortable, got my nice sweater and my pillows, everything. It really does feel like I'm at a sleepover telling ghost stories like I used to do when I was little. And on that note, I wanted to share a book that I have actually had since I was very young. In fact, there is a marker stain on the front of it because I put this book in my backpack to take to school with me when I was in elementary school, because that's when my interest in the paranormal and all of this began. That's when I went on my first ghost tour. So I got this book, A Ghostly Experience, and it is Tales of St. Augustine, Florida. This is a very old book. Here's the beautiful marker stain. It's very well loved, well worn, but I love this book. The illustrations with each story are kind of creepy. This one's about Elizabeth, one of the ghosts that is supposed to haunt St. Augustine. She's at the entrance gates. So as I said in my ghost stories video about the St. Augustine Lighthouse, I have spent a lot of time in and around St. Augustine, and I did in fact go to school there, and where I went to school will be the subject of this set of ghost stories, Flagler College. So Flagler College is named for Henry Flagler, kind of a big titan of industry back then. He built the Florida East Coast Railway system and also a few hotels down in St. Augustine. Very prolific man for his time. One of the hotels that he commissioned was the Ponce de Leon Hotel. It still stands today. It is actually the girls' dorm room for Flagler College. And at the time of my attending, it was mandatory for all freshmen to live on campus. I'm not sure if they've changed that rule since me graduating, but who am I to turn down living in an old haunted hotel? Because even before I ever dreamed of going to Flagler, I was aware of the history of the hotel. I was aware of the ghost stories. I'd heard a lot of them. I had read them in this book because there is a section all about the Hotel Ponce de Leon. So in this book right here, here's Mr. Flagler, the man himself. One of the things that this story delves into is how sometimes students would see the apparition of Mr. Flagler standing at the end of their bed. I was never lucky enough to have that happen to me, but allegedly it has. But there are a lot of rumors, myths, urban legends, ghost stories surrounding the college. One of the most famous being about the viewing of Mr. Henry Flagler's body after his death. It was placed in the rotunda of the Ponce de Leon Hotel, and on a day when there was no wind during the ceremony, all of the doors were supposed to have blown shut, and people believed that it was Henry having one last, bit of fun, one last, hurrah before he departed this world. And in one of the tiles on the floor of the hotel, you are allegedly able to see his face. I have seen it. I cannot remember to this day where the actual tile that has the image of his face in it is, but students will walk by, they know where it is, they'll say, "Hey Henry," all of that. It even talks about that in this book as well. So that's one of the big urban legends. There's also one that I do not believe has ever been proven to be true. We always heard stories of him locking one of his wives in the bell tower of the Ponce de Leon Hotel because she went crazy. And one time that I did have a bit of a alleged encounter with said wife was when I was doing theater. I was in the theater department at Flagler. We had a rehearsal inside one of the buildings in the old Ponce de Leon Hotel, the old women's parlor. It's one of the parts of the building that has remained untouched in a lot of ways. They keep it as a replica of what it would have looked like back in the day. You can take a historic tour through the building. You can see part of the beautiful dining hall, all the Tiffany glass and the artwork on the ceiling. It really is an incredible building. I feel really lucky to have lived there for some time. But on the historical tour, you go into the ladies' parlor. So we were doing rehearsals in there, and for whatever reason, I kept trying the door handle to get in, and I could not open the door. And the people on the other side of the door had to come let me in. For whatever reason, anytime I went in and out of that ladies' parlor for that particular rehearsal, the door would not open for me. Either I'm an idiot, or, maybe it was something ghostly. I can chalk that up to coincidence, but it was so funny because my director said something along the lines of, "Oh, is that you, Mary Alice? Are you not letting Carson in the room?" So that was one of those encounters I had with the crazy wife, but I don't think that ever actually happened. I'm not, as a believer, I'm not willing to sign off on that particular story. But I did, however, know lots of people who knew lots of other people that had had encounters over the years in the dorm room, the Ponce de Leon Hotel, myself and a couple of my roommates included. We'd hear stories about RAs getting calls from girls crying in the middle of the night that weird stuff was going on. I'd heard of RAs being scared to go into particular rooms, all of that kind of stuff. And, you know, being me and loving all of that, I was kind of a sucker for all of that. So I couldn't help but wonder, like, is our dorm room haunted? And over the course of the 2 years I lived in the building, I lived in 2 different dorm rooms, my freshman and my sophomore years when I lived in the hotel. We did have a few encounters. Freshman year, we thought it would be a good idea. I don't know why, because while I do believe in spirits, I don't believe in playing with anything scary or demonic. We thought it would be a good idea to use a Ouija board. It is the only time I've ever used one. I would never touch one again to this day, now that I am a little more educated about them. I don't think that's something that you should do for fun. Maybe that makes me sound crazy, but I don't play with demonic spirits. Sorry, I can coexist peacefully with a friendly spirit. I cannot coexist with demons. So we thought we'd get a Ouija board. I don't even remember. It wasn't mine. I think a friend of one of my roommates had one and brought it over. We shut off all the lights in the middle of the night and we sat in the middle of the room and did the Ouija board. Now, nobody tried anything funny. Nobody did any pushing it to make it spell silly things. I don't even think the planchette ever even moved. But while we were asking the spirit world to give us a sign, we said, "Could you knock for us?" And distinctly from one of the other side of the room, we hear a on the wall. Now, dorms are not the quietest places in the whole world. I will admit that. But our room happened to be the very last one at the end of the hall, and the wall in which the knocking happened on, there was no room on the other side of that wall. There was nothing on the other side. It was just the dead end, the end of the hallway. So we got a little freaked out. We said, "Can you knock again?" And then, of course, again. And then we promptly stopped playing with the Ouija board because that was enough for us. The only other thing that ever happened in that dorm room, the freshman one wasn't super active other than our Ouija board incident. There was a weird thing that happened where one day, and we all asked each other, what even happened in the bathroom this morning? Because we all thought that one of the others had done this. All of the stuff that was in our shower caddies, some of it had been knocked over and spilled, and one of our washcloths was shoved all the way in the toilet. Not it could have just fallen in there. It was wedged in the lower back part of the toilet where everything flushes down. That was really weird, unless my roommates were fantastic liars, and neither of them, I had great roommates, neither of them were mischievous pranksters that would ever do anything like that. They didn't do it. I certainly didn't do it. None of us were sleepwalkers, so we really couldn't explain that. Our bathroom did get a little messed up, and we were the only ones that had access to it, because since it is an old hotel, a lot of the dorm rooms have a bathroom attached. It's not a shared bathroom space. That was it for freshman year, but sophomore year was a little bit more interesting. So one of my roommates from freshman year moved off campus. One of them stayed, and the two of us decided to room together again. And we were in room 327, which I loved because it was close to 237, which was the hotel room, the haunted hotel room from The Shining, the movie version. I know it's 217 in the book. And as a avid fan of The Shining, I was living my Shining dreams, living in the haunted hotel. We, in fact, one time freshman year, put my DVD copy of The Shining in the DVD player, and we're so lazy we didn't take it out, and we just kept The Shining on repeat. We'd fall asleep to it for a solid week. It was really funny. Or maybe that's just weird and crazy. Yeah, maybe that's not normal. Normal people don't do that. Our lovely room 327 was more active, and I kind of picked up on the fact that we weren't alone in that room pretty quickly. I'm not a sit at a desk type of person, but we did have desks in the room to do our work and stuff, obviously. But I was sitting, it was right after we had moved in for sophomore year. I was sitting at the desk, taking care of some things for the first week of classes or so. And I kept hearing the floorboards behind me. It was carpeted, but it was obviously wood underneath. I kept hearing a creaking sound. And I turned around once expecting my roommate to have come back because she wasn't there at the time, and she wasn't there. And then I kept hearing like it was somebody walking up behind me. And it's just that feeling of when you're being watched, kind of the hair on the back of your neck, as they say, kind of stands up. Just that feeling of not being alone. I wasn't like scared or terrified, but there was that overwhelming sense of someone else is here in this room. So we decided we wanted to be friends with the spirit. I know, we're crazy. This is probably dumb, me talking about this. I probably just sound like a lunatic. But we would always like talk to it and be like, hello, do you want to come hang out with us? We're eating Chinese food. And we watched a lot of Lost. That was the year that we binge watched Lost, my most favorite show. I'm out about it, haters. But we watched a lot of that, and we would invite it to come sit with us on the beds and watch Lost with us. So perhaps it wasn't very interested in doing all of that. I don't know. A couple of other things happened in that room. So that roommate I lived with actually transferred schools halfway through the year, and I assumed they would replace my roommate with somebody else if there was a demand for on campus housing, but they never did. I had the room to myself for the latter half of the year. So there is no explanation for a few of the other things that took place in that dorm room. I had this little like wrist wallet thing. I kept my student ID to scan into all the doors, all of my information. It was kind of like my lifeline. All my keys, everything was on it. I kept that thing with me at all times. And I was a stickler for always putting it on the dresser right next to my bed. And there was one day that I had an 8 a.m. class, and it was tradition. And this had started before my roommate left that semester. I took 8 a.m.s that year, and we started the first semester before she left. After our 8 a.m. classes, we'd go and we'd get breakfast and we'd come back and we'd do a nap. It was like our napping day. So I kept that tradition alive the next semester when I had an 8 a.m. I always put my wallet, or my little wrist wallet, on top of that dresser. I never put it anywhere else. I put it up on that dresser. I went to sleep. My door was locked. Nobody else was coming in the room. I wake up from my nap. I needed to go somewhere. I look for my little wallet wrist thing, and it's not on the dresser. Instead, it's all the way over on the other side of the room on my desk. So I just kind of said, hey, don't move my stuff. And that was the only time anything had ever been moved. But there is no explanation for that. The door was locked. I lived alone. I didn't move it. I always put it in the same place. I didn't use the desk other than I used the drawers to store DVDs in because, hey, what else was I to do with it? I sat on the bed the rest of the year and did my homework after the being watched from behind incident. But there was no way that it would have just like floated over there on its own. So I don't have an explanation for that. And the other distinct thing that happened in that dorm room, we bunked the beds when I had my roommate and I there because it gave the room more space. You could have unbunked them, but they came attached. So we just thought, let's maximize space. We'll bunk them. I took the bottom bunk and my roommate took the top bunk. And there was no covering under it. It was just the springs. You could always see the springs and the mattress kind of like dent in whenever somebody would be sitting on it. So obviously when my roommate was sitting up there, it would be dented. Well, she's gone. I live alone. So explain to me why I'm sitting on my bed and I hear the distinct sound of springs, like somebody is moving on the bed. And then it clicks in my mind, nobody's up there. But I look up and then the springs and the mattress start to sag as if somebody is sitting on the bed when I was alone. But just thought, well, that's a little weird. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like a big old weirdo for being so at peace about things like this. But like I said, I could coexist with something that's peaceful. Come watch TV and eat junk food with us, because that's what you do in college when you're not studying, of course. So I will never forget my time in the Ponce de Leon Hotel as a dorm room. I still go down to St. Augustine and go in and around the campus. And I'm like, I can't believe I actually went to school here. This was wild. This was incredible. I feel so lucky, and it makes my little ghost-loving heart so happy to have gotten to do that as well. So maybe I'm a lunatic. Maybe I need my brain checked out, but hey, some things you just can't explain.